I accidentally purchased an alien girl. Now she says we're bonded forever. In the dark corners of Mars Colony 9, where broken machines whispered louder than people, a man named Ethan Cole sat alone in his workshop. He was a quiet engineer, the kind of man who fixed things no one else cared about. Most nights, he worked until his eyes burned, trying to forget the silence that followed him everywhere. That night, the colony's artificial sun had already dimmed, casting red light over metal walls and half-built drones. Ethan stared at the flickering screen on his desk, scrolling through a secret trading site he was never supposed to see. The black market of the stars, a hidden place where people sold everything the law had banned. Weapons, illegal tech, rare DNA samples, even things that breathed. Ethan never meant to buy anything. He only watched out of curiosity, but one file caught his eye, labeled Lot 47, Bio Unit. Female, hybrid class. There was no picture, only a short description. Fully functional, emotionally adaptive, responsive to human commands. Ethan frowned, wondering if it was some kind of synthetic AI model. Without thinking much, he clicked the bid button and then forgot about it. A few hours later, his console beeped. Purchase confirmed. Delivery ETA. 2 hours. Ethan blinked in confusion. What? No, that can't be right, he whispered. He tried to cancel the order, but the system was locked. No refund, no return. No contact number outside. The desert storm howled across the colony's protective dome. Ethan sighed, thinking it was just a glitch. Maybe an error from the market's bots. But then a sharp buzz echoed from the landing pad. A drone ship had arrived. Small, black, and silent, its lights blinked once. And a voice spoke through the intercom. Delivery for order number 47. Confirm identity. Ethan stepped forward. His pulse quickening, the drone door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a containment pod, transparent, foggy, and pulsing with light. As he wiped the glass, his heart nearly stopped. There, curled inside, was a girl. She wasn't human, not completely. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver under the lights. Her hair glowed faintly blue, moving as if it floated in water. Her eyes opened slowly, glowing soft cyan, full of fear and confusion. She looked right at Ethan and whispered, trembling, "Please, don't send me back." Ethan froze. His voice caught in his throat. He stepped back, shaking his head. "This must be a mistake," he murmured, but his console beeped again, displaying a message. Warning: unauthorized possession of Class 5 alien property. Report immediately to Central Security. Ethan stared at the words, his hands cold. Property? Class 5? What did that mean? Before he could think, the girl stumbled out of the pod, clutching her chest. A metallic collar shimmered around her neck. Humming softly with red light, she looked terrified, staring at the message on his console. Then at him. "If you report me," she said softly, "they'll kill both of us." Her voice wasn't robotic. It was human. Gentle, real. Ethan could feel her fear, see the way her hands trembled as she touched her collar. He took a deep breath, trying to understand. "Who are you?" he asked. The girl blinked, confused. I don't know. They call me Lyra," she said quietly. "I was made, not born." Before Ethan could reply, a faint beeping came from the collar. The red light began flashing faster. Lyra's eyes widened in panic. "They're coming," she whispered. "Who's coming?" Ethan asked, but she didn't answer. She fell to her knees, clutching her head as the collar glowed brighter. Ethan rushed forward, grabbing her shoulders. As soon as he touched her, the collar flickered, then turned blue. The beeping stopped, and silence filled the room. Lyra opened her eyes again, breathing heavily. You stopped it, she whispered, looking at him with disbelief. No one's ever done that before. Ethan stared at her glowing collar. What did I just do? Lyra shook her head. You linked to me. Her words sent a chill down his spine. Linked? What does that mean? But before she could explain, the workshop lights dimmed. Outside, loud metallic thuds echoed in the distance. Security drones scanning the area. Lyra grabbed his arm, her voice trembling. They found the signal, she said. We need to hide. No. Ethan didn't know why he believed her. He didn't know why he felt responsible, but something in her eyes, the fear, the desperation, it felt too real. He pulled her behind his desk, shutting down the lights, through the window. Red searchlights swept across the colony street. The sound of engines filled the air. Lyra leaned close, whispering, They won't stop until they find me. They think I belong to them. Ethan's heart pounded as the lights passed over his workshop. For a moment, he thought they were safe. But then, his console blinked again. Incoming transmission. We know what you bought. Ethan Cole. He froze, staring at the screen. Lyra's hand tightened on his arm. Her voice was barely a whisper now. It's too late, she said, her eyes glowing brighter. They're already here. Outside, a shadow moved against the window, tall, armored and silent. The figure's visor flared red, scanning the workshop walls. Ethan held his breath, every nerve screaming. Lyra looked at him, her voice shaking. If you want to live, she whispered, you have to trust me. Before he could reply, the window shattered. A beam of light cut through the air, and everything went white. Before we begin this story, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to hear is just the beginning. When the blinding light faded, Ethan found himself lying on the floor. His ears ringing, smoke filled the air. Pieces of metal scattered everywhere. The workshop walls burned with glowing cracks. He coughed, trying to breathe, his vision spinning. For a moment, he thought he was dead, until he felt a hand grab his shoulder. Ethan, wake up, a soft voice said. Trembling, it was Lyra, kneeling beside him, her silver skin flickering faintly under the emergency light. Her collar was still glowing blue, the color of calm, but her face showed panic. Ethan blinked, his head pounding. What happened? He groaned. They tried to break in, she said, but I stopped them. I think. Ethan sat up slowly, looking around. The door was melted, and outside, the sound of drones hummed faintly in the distance. Stop them? He whispered, staring at her. Lyra looked away, her eyes dim. I didn't mean to, but when they fired, something inside me reacted, she said. I lost control. Ethan noticed the black marks burned into the metal floor. Human-shaped shadows, frozen mid-motion. Those men? He began. They're gone, Lyra whispered, her voice breaking slightly. Ethan felt a chill crawl down his spine. He stood and looked at her again. Really looked this time. She wasn't just a frightened alien girl. Her movements were precise, graceful, almost too perfect. But there was something else, sadness in her eyes. Like she'd been through this before, many times. Who did this to you? He asked quietly. Lyra wrapped her arms around herself. They called themselves the Makers, she said softly. Humans and aliens together. Scientists who created life to serve emotion. Not feel it. Her voice cracked. I was made to obey. Not to think. Ethan felt anger rise inside him. He had seen greed before, but this was different. You mean? You were sold like a machine, he said. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, but you didn't just buy me, Ethan. You linked to me. Ethan frowned, confused. What does that even mean? Lyra hesitated, then gently touched her collar. When she did, Ethan felt a strange pulse in his chest, a soft vibration that matched her heartbeat. Her eyes widened. "You feel it, don't you?" she whispered. Ethan stepped back, startled. "What did you do?" Lyra shook her head. "It's not me. It's the bond. The collar used your DNA to reset itself. Now it recognizes you as its key." Ethan's stomach turned cold. "So? You're bound to me?" Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with something like shame. "Yes, but it's more than that if they want to take me back now. They can't, unless you're dead." Silence filled the room. Heavy and real outside, the colony alarms were still echoing faintly. Ethan didn't know what to feel. Fear, guilt, confusion, maybe all of it at once. He had just wanted to look at a strange listing, and now he was marked as a criminal, linked to an alien girl whose existence broke every law in the system. He ran his hands through his hair. Pacing. "This is insane," he muttered. "I need to undo it. There has to be a way." Lyra looked at him sadly. "If you remove the bond, I'll die," she said quietly. Ethan stopped walking, his heart skipping. "You'll die?" Lyra nodded. "The link uses my life code to stabilize the human signal, break it, and my neural core burns out." He stared at her. Completely lost, she looked fragile and strong at the same time, like a creature that shouldn't exist. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan finally sighed, rubbing his face. "Okay," he said softly. "For now. We hide." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Hide? Where?" Ethan pointed toward a hatch at the back of the workshop. "Maintenance tunnels," he said. "They run under the colony dome. No signal scanners reach there." Lyra followed him silently as they crawled through the narrow metal path. The hum of the colony above sounded distant, almost like thunder when they reached a small maintenance hub. Ethan sat down, exhausted. Lyra looked around, curious, her glowing hair lighting up the dark tunnel. "What is this place?" she asked softly. "An old power conduit," Ethan replied. "No one uses it anymore." Lyra touched the wall, feeling the vibration of the energy lines. "I can sense the current," she whispered. "It's beautiful." For the first time, Ethan saw her smile, small, almost shy. He felt something strange, a flicker of warmth, even in the middle of danger. Then suddenly, his wrist console beeped. A message appeared in bright red letters. "Unauthorized entity detected. Human bio. Link registered. Reporting to Central Authority." Ethan cursed under his breath. "They know," he said. Lyra grabbed his arm. "We have to move," she said. "They're tracing you through the link." Ethan looked at her, panic rising. "Can you stop it?" She shook her head. "Not yet. I need time." Ethan started to gather his tools, but before he could stand, a sharp metallic sound echoed through the tunnel. Something was crawling down from above. Heavy steps. Mechanical breathing. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter. "They sent hunters," she said quietly. "Hunters?" Ethan whispered. "Yes," she replied. "Machines that track bonded hybrids and their human hosts." The tunnel lights flickered, and a dark silhouette appeared at the far end. A tall machine with red glowing eyes and blades for arms. It scanned the tunnel, emitting a low mechanical hum. Ethan froze, whispering, "We can't fight that." Lyra closed her eyes, whispering back, "We might not have to." The air around her shimmered, small sparks of blue energy forming around her skin. Ethan watched, amazed and terrified. The machine raised its weapon, charging a plasma shot. "Lyra, no!" he shouted, but before he could stop her, she extended her hand, and the tunnel exploded with light. The shock wave knocked Ethan to the floor. When the light faded, the machine was gone. Its metal parts melted into the wall. Lyra collapsed beside him, breathing heavily. Her skin flickered between silver and pale white. Ethan grabbed her shoulders. Lyra, are you okay? She opened her eyes slowly, whispering, I told you. I was made to obey, but I'm learning to protect. Her voice trembled as she looked at him. They'll keep coming, Ethan. Until I'm captured, or you're dead. Ethan clenched his fists. Then we'll run, he said. Together, Lyra smiled faintly, closing her eyes. You don't understand, she whispered. This bond. It's changing me, Ethan frowned. What do you mean? Lyra looked at him, her eyes now glowing deep violet. I can feel your heartbeat, she whispered. And your fear. She touched his hand gently. And it's becoming mine. Ethan felt the pulse again, that strange connection inside his chest. Stronger this time, the air between them felt alive. Outside, the colony sirens grew louder, red lights flashing through the tunnels. Lyra looked toward the sound, her voice barely audible. They found us, she said. Ethan picked up his pack, pulling her to her feet. Then let's make them regret it, he said, and together, they ran into the shadows of the Martian tunnels. The sound of hunters closing in behind them. As they disappeared into the dark, an encrypted voice came through Ethan's console. Ethan Cole. We told you not to buy her. Now it's too late. The tunnels echoed with the sound of heavy steps. Ethan's boots splashed through the shallow water, running beneath the old metal floor. The red emergency lights flickered. Painting everything in a heartbeat rhythm, Lyra ran beside him, her glowing hair flowing behind her like a comet's tail, each time she looked back. Her eyes flashed faint blue, scanning the darkness. They're close, she whispered. Too close. Ethan gritted his teeth, his lungs burning. How many? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lyra closed her eyes for a second. Sensing. 3 hunters, she said. Maybe 4. One of them is heavier. Command unit. The words sent a chill through him. Hunters were not simple machines. They were biomechanical assassins, built to track, capture, or kill with perfect precision. If they were here, it meant the black market network had already contacted the central authority. Now Ethan wasn't just a man who bought something illegal. He was a target. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 2 directions. Ethan stopped to catch his breath. His hands shaking, Lyra placed her hand on the wall. Feeling the vibrations again. Left path leads to the reactor, she said. Right goes to the colony's under hangar. Ethan hesitated. Thinking fast. The hangar, we can steal a rover, he said. Lyra shook her head. No, too exposed. The scanners will see us. They'll lock the exits. Before Ethan could answer, a metallic voice echoed through the tunnel behind them. Target acquired. Human signature detected. Engage. Ethan's heart jumped. He turned. 3 dark shapes were emerging from the red mist. They were tall, armored, with glowing red eyes and blades on their arms that hissed like fire. The ground shook under their heavy steps. Run, Lyra whispered, and they did. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the colony. Ethan could hear the machines smashing through walls, breaking metal pipes as they followed. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Lyra grabbed Ethan's hand and pulled him through a maintenance hatch. They slid down a chute, landing hard in another tunnel far below. Ethan winced, clutching his shoulder. You okay? Lyra asked quickly. I think so, he said. Just bruised. She helped him up, her hands surprisingly warm despite her metallic shimmer. Her collar glowed faintly blue, calmer now, but Ethan could see the fear in her eyes. Even if she tried to hide it, Lyra, he said quietly. You fought one before. Can you do it again? She looked away. I can, she whispered, but every time I use my power, I lose part of myself. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? My systems overload, she said softly, and I forget things, small things first. But soon, memories. Her voice broke a little. I don't want to forget. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. He didn't know why, but the thought of her losing herself made him angry. You won't, he said firmly. I won't let you. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shimmering with a strange emotion. Hope. Maybe. But before she could reply, a loud metallic crash shook the tunnel. The hunters had found another way down. Ethan grabbed her hand again, and they ran. They reached a large chamber filled with old generators and broken pipes. The hum of ancient power filled the air. Ethan stopped and looked around. I can overload the generators, he said. Create an EMP pulse. Maybe disable them. Lyra nodded quickly. Do it. I'll buy us time. Before he could argue, she stepped forward, standing in the center of the chamber. The hunters burst through the far wall. Glowing red eyes scanning, weapons raised. Target locked, one said. Lyra's voice echoed through the chamber, calm and clear. You should not have come here, the hunters charged. Metal claws sparking against the ground, Ethan worked fast, his hands flying over the old control panel. Cables sparked, energy surged, lights flickered. He could hear the machines closing in. Then a blinding flash filled the chamber. Lyra moved like lightning. Energy rippled through her body. Her silver skin glowing white. She raised her hand, and the first hunter froze mid-charge, its metal frame twisting under invisible pressure. The second fired a plasma bolt, but it curved away. Drawn into her outstretched palm, she redirected it, the explosion tearing the ceiling apart. Ethan watched in awe and terror. She was powerful, more than anything he'd ever seen, but he also saw the pain on her face. She screamed as the energy tore through her veins. Her glow flickered violently. Lyra! Ethan shouted. He slammed the final switch. The generators erupted in a burst of white light, the EMP waves spreading through the chamber like a storm. The hunters convulsed, their red eyes flickering out. One by one collapsing to the ground, the walls shook, the floor cracked. And silence fell again. Smoke filled the air. Ethan crawled toward Lyra, who had fallen to her knees, trembling, her skin dimmed back to silver. Her hair losing its glow, he grabbed her shoulders, shaking her gently. Lyra, stay with me, he said, her eyes opened weakly, her voice a whisper. I remember less now, she said softly. I think I forgot. My home. Ethan's throat tightened. You saved us, he said. That's what matters. Lyra smiled faintly, her voice barely audible. I saved you. Because you didn't treat me like property. For a moment. Everything was still. Then Ethan's wrist console beeped. He looked down. A new message flashing on screen. Emergency alert. Power surge detected. Colony systems offline. Evacuation in progress. Ethan's heart sank. The EMP had disabled not just the hunters, but the colony grid itself. Now they were blind, unprotected. And every scanner in orbit would see them. Lyra looked up at him weakly. They'll send more, she whispered. Ethan nodded grimly. Then we need to leave the planet. Lyra blinked, confused. Leave? Yes, he said. I know a cargo bay in the east sector. Old supply ships still dock there. Maybe one still works. He helped her stand, wrapping a torn cloth around her shoulders. As they started walking through the broken tunnel, Lyra suddenly stopped, her head tilted slightly, as if hearing something Ethan couldn't. What is it? He asked. She turned slowly, her eyes glowing faintly violet again. They're not sending machines this time, she said. They're sending people. Ethan frowned. People? Yes, she said softly. The ones who made me. They reached the exit hatch, leading to the outer dome of the colony. Ethan opened it carefully. Cold Martian wind rushed in, carrying red dust that shimmered under the artificial sky. From here, the colony looked empty, silent domes. Flickering lights, distant alarms, Lyra stepped forward, staring at the open world for the first time. She looked almost peaceful. "This is freedom," she whispered. "It feels heavy." Ethan smiled faintly. "Despite everything, you get used to it," he said. But before they could take another step, his console vibrated again. A new message appeared, this time not a warning, but a voice recording. "Ethan Cole," the voice said. "Cold and familiar. We know what you've done. Return the asset, or Mars will burn." Lyra's collar glowed red again. Reacting to the signal, her body stiffened, her eyes turning white for a moment. "Lyra!" Ethan shouted, holding her. She gasped, shaking violently. "They're trying to control me," she whispered. Through the network, Ethan quickly ripped a cable from his toolkit and pressed it to the collar. Trying to override it, sparks flew, and the collar dimmed back to blue. Lyra leaned against him, trembling. "They can't track me now," she whispered. "But they know where we're going." Ethan looked toward the horizon, the old hangar barely visible in the red mist. "Then we'll just have to get there first," he said. He picked up his pack and helped her walk, step by step through the Martian wind. Behind them, high above the colony, a black ship descended through the dust clouds, its engines silent. A red insignia marked its hull, a serpent wrapped around a star. Inside, a voice spoke through static. "Recover Unit 47 alive. Terminate the human." As Ethan and Lyra disappeared into the storm, the Hunter's creators landed on Mars, and somewhere deep in Lyra's mind, a hidden protocol began to awaken. Reconnection initiated. Command override pending. The Martian storm hauled like a living creature. Red dust whipped across the barren plains as Ethan and Lyra trudged through the storm, their silhouettes barely visible under the dying light of the colony domes. The wind screamed around them, carrying sparks of static that danced in the air. Every step felt heavier than the last. Ethan's breath fogged inside his cracked helmet. But he refused to slow down. Lyra walked beside him, her silver skin now dimmed and covered by the dark fabric of Ethan's jacket. Even in the storm, her eyes glowed faintly blue, like twin lights leading the way through chaos. "Not far," Ethan shouted over the wind, pointing toward a faint metal structure in the distance. Lyra nodded, her voice soft but clear. "I can sense the power field. The hangar is still active." Ethan squinted through the storm. The old supply hangar looked broken, half buried under years of red dust. But it was their only hope. They stumbled inside, sealing the heavy doors behind them. The sound of the storm faded, replaced by silence. Only the hum of forgotten machines echoed through the vast empty space. Ethan pulled off his helmet, gasping for air, his heart still pounding from the run. He looked around. Old cargo crates, rusted ships, flickering control panels. He smiled faintly. "Home sweet home," he muttered, collapsing against a crate. Lyra watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. "You humans always make jokes when you're scared," she said softly. Ethan looked up, surprised, then laughed tiredly. "It helps," he said. "Sometimes it's all we've got." Lyra tilted her head. As if studying him, her voice became softer. "Almost curious, fear is." "Strange to me," she said. "They didn't design us to feel it." Ethan frowned. "You keep saying they. Who are they, Lyra?" She looked down, her hands tightening around her arms. "The Makers," she whispered. "The scientists who created my kind." Ethan leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Tell me everything." Lyra hesitated, her eyes flickering between blue and white. Then she slowly nodded. "They started it years ago, long before Mars was colonized, when humans found alien ruins on Titan," she began. "They discovered fragments of an old language, not written, but sung like living code. She paused, her eyes distant. They used that code to grow something, a neural weave they could think, feel, and adapt, but they couldn't control it. Ethan's jaw tightened. So they turned it into living beings. Lyra nodded slowly. They grew us in biovats. Half human, half synthetic, designed to obey commands. But look and act human. Her voice trembled now. Some of us were made for war, some for science, and some for comfort. Ethan's stomach turned cold. Love slaves, he whispered, realizing the name wasn't just marketing. It was real. Lyra looked away, her voice breaking slightly. They said emotions were dangerous, but they made us feel anyway, to make us more believable, more loyal. She touched her collar. This wasn't a restraint. It was a key, connecting our emotions to the commands we received. If we disobeyed, it hurt. Ethan clenched his fists, his heart pounding in anger. That's not creation, he said. That's cruelty, Lyra smiled sadly. To them, we weren't alive, she said. We were property. Ethan stood, pacing the room, trying to process everything. So what happened? He asked. Lyra closed her eyes. There was a rebellion. A scientist, a woman named Dr. Mira Solon, tried to free us. She changed our code so we could think for ourselves. But she was caught. Lyra's eyes filled with light for a moment. I remember her face, she whispered. She told me, when you find someone kind, trust them. Then they erased her from the system. Ethan stopped. Frozen, and now they're after you, he said. Lyra nodded slowly. I'm the last prototype of her design. Unit 47, the only one left with free will. Her voice softened to almost a whisper. That's why they want me back. To destroy what she made. Ethan sat beside her, silent for a long time. The sound of the old hangar wind creaked through the walls. He finally said, They won't get you, Lyra. I won't let them. She looked at him, her eyes shining faintly. You say that, she said softly. But you don't understand what I am. Ethan frowned. What are you then? Lyra hesitated. Then she took his hand gently and placed it on her chest. He felt it, not a normal heartbeat, but a pulse, rhythmic and deep. That's not just a heart, she whispered. It's a power core, connected to my neural code. Suddenly, her collar flickered, and the air around them shimmered. A projection appeared from her chest, flickering holographic images of experiments. Screens and wires running through flesh. Ethan flinched, but Lyra didn't move. This is what they did, she said. They used emotion as data, pain as progress. The projection showed hundreds of others like her, hybrids, each trapped in tubes, eyes blank. Ethan stared in horror. God, he muttered. They turned love into a weapon. Lyra's voice cracked. Yes. And I was their perfect model. She ended the projection and sank to the floor, shaking. Ethan knelt beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. Hey, he said gently. You're not what they made you to be. You're something more. Lyra looked up, tears glowing like liquid light in her eyes. You don't understand, Ethan. I feel things I shouldn't. When you talk, when you smile, when you fight for me. It changes my code. Ethan stared at her. What do you mean? Lyra touched his chest. I'm adapting to you, she whispered. My neural pattern is rewriting itself to match your emotional frequency. Her voice shook. If it continues, I'll stop being what I was and start becoming something else. Before Ethan could respond, his console beeped again. He looked down. Another signal. Encrypted but clear. Lyra's eyes widened. That's not from the makers, she said quickly. That's from her. Dr. Solon. Ethan frowned. She's alive? Lyra nodded slowly. Maybe. Or it's her echo. Her digital ghost. Ethan opened the message, and a faint voice came through. distorted but human. If you're hearing this, the prototype has bonded successfully, the voice said. You are her link now, her protection and her key. But beware, they hid something inside her, something neither of you can control. The message ended abruptly. Ethan looked at Lyra. What did she mean, something inside you? Lyra shook her head, terrified. I don't know, maybe a failsafe, or... She stopped, her voice trembling. Or a weapon. Before Ethan could ask more, the ground trembled. The hangar lights flickered violently, alarms blaring. Lyra turned toward the main gate, her eyes wide. They found us, she whispered, outside, through the cracks of the door. Bright red lights shone through the dust. Silhouettes appeared, not machines this time, but humans in armor, their rifles humming with plasma. Ethan grabbed his plasma tool, standing beside her. You can't fight them all, he said. Lara looked at him, her eyes glowing now with fierce determination. I don't have to, she whispered. I just have to protect you. The hangar doors exploded open, light flooding the space. Lyra raised her hands, blue energy crackling through her veins. The soldiers shouted, firing in synchronized bursts. Ethan ducked behind a crate, shouting, Lyra, stop! You'll kill yourself. But she didn't stop. Her voice echoed, not just through the room, but through the coms of every soldier. I am not your slave anymore, she said. Her voice both human and machine. The ground shook, metal bent, and the air itself seemed to pulse with energy. Ethan shielded his face from the blinding light. Then silence. When he looked up, the soldiers were gone, vanished, their armor turned to ash. Lyra stood in the middle of the hangar, trembling, her light dimming again. She turned slowly, her voice weak. Ethan, she whispered. I think I know what she hid inside me. He ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. What is it? Lyra's eyes flickered with white static. She didn't just give me freedom, she whispered. She gave me the power to destroy the Makers. Her collar began to glow red again, brighter than ever. Lyra! Ethan shouted. She looked at him one last time before collapsing into his arms. Her body cold, her light fading, and from her collar, a mechanical voice whispered through the static. Omega Protocol initiated. Countdown, 72 hours. The words hung in the air like a curse. Omega Protocol initiated. Countdown, 72 hours. Ethan held Lyra as her glow faded to a dim ripple under the skin. Her breath shallow, her collar pulsing with a slow red heartbeat. The hangar's emergency lights flickered in a ragged rhythm, dust drifting through the beams like falling ash. Outside, the storm had quieted, but the colony alarms rose into a single wail that shook the metal walls. Stay with me, Lyra, Ethan whispered, cradling her head. I'm not leaving you. Her eyes fluttered, a pale blue shining for a heartbeat, then sinking again. He felt the low hum of energy through her collar, like a coil winding tighter with every second. 72 hours to something none of them understood, and the Makers were already closing in. Ethan forced himself to move, his mind snapping into the cold focus of an engineer under fire. He scanned the hangar, counting ships, tools, cables, power tethers, any path out of this dying world. 3 cargo haulers slept in the shadows, one split open like a tin can, one stripped to the ribs, one intact but dust-heavy. A 4th shape slouched beneath a tarp, smaller, sleek. The bones of a courier ship somebody had hidden and forgotten. Ethan's pulse kicked. Small meant nimble, and nimble meant alive. He lay Lyra gently on a padded crate, wrapping her with the heat blanket from his pack. Back in a minute, he murmured, and sprinted to the courier, tearing the tarp free with both hands. Under it, the ship was a battered beauty. Delta wings scarred, engines blackened, cockpit sealed and dust-filmed. He slapped his wrist console onto the hatch port, bridged 2 contacts with a screwdriver, and whispered a prayer to nothing in particular. The lock thunked, the canopy hissed. Lights rolled across the flight deck like waking eyes. He ran the diagnostics fast, faster than was wise, reading just enough to know the truth. The engines were good enough. The fuel was low, but not dead. The reactor was grumpy, but awake. The nav array had holes, but Mars' orbit was still mapped. The ship had a name etched into the console. Parallax, a good omen or a bad joke. He decided it was a promise. He turned back to Lyra, and the doors at the far end of the hangar trembled with heavy footfalls. Voices carried through the metal, filtered by helmets, command sharp and certain. Secure the objective, prioritize the asset. Terminate the human on contact. Ethan's teeth clenched. The words lit something iron in his chest. A human anger older than stars. He lifted Lyra, felt the lightness of her impossible body, the weight of her future, and carried her to the ship. He settled her into the co-pilot cradle, strapped her in, connected a med feed line to the collar's maintenance port. Her eyes flickered, a soft sound left her lips. Not quite a word, but it pulled him closer. Ethan, she breathed, the syllables barely air. Don't let them turn me off. Over my dead body, he said. And for once, the vow felt like a tool, not poetry. Metal screamed as cutting charges ate through the hangar doors. Light speared through the seams, smoke formed a cruel halo. Ethan dropped into the pilot's seat, fingers flying, reactor to idle warm. Fuel pumps on, thrusters primed, landing gear soft-locked. He routed emergency power to the jammer, built into the dorsal spine. A smuggler's gift to a ship that never expected a second life. The door blew inward. Armored silhouettes surged through the smoke. Their visors red, their rifles singing. Ethan slammed the bay floodlights to blinding, kicked the hangar's gravity plates into full reverse for 3 seconds, and heard men stumble and curse. He fired the ship's dust jets. Hurricane force across the floor, sending crates skidding and a storm of red powder into every joint and barrel. Lyra's collar flashed white for a heartbeat. A burst of static shook the cockpit glass. Ethan braced for an explosion. But the pulse cut short. Her body arched, then eased, as if some deeper process had stolen the rest of that power. Saving it like a knife for later, a voice broke into his console. Cold and remote. Courier Parallax. You are illegally active. Stand down. Surrender the asset. Your life will be considered in any prosecution. Ethan snorted, toggled the external speakers, and didn't bother with words. He lit the engines. A low thunder that shivered the ribs of the hangar, and ramped thrust to yellow. The soldiers opened fire. White spears slammed into the ship's nose and wings. Armor plating flared with thermal sparks. Alarms sang. Ethan rode the alarms like drums, rolled the Parallax forward, and blew the emergency shutters with a command he had no right to know. The roof iris began to open, war-torn and stubborn, grinding against years of dust. A circle of star specked darkness widening like an eye. He dumped auxiliary charge into the roof motors, and the iris snapped the rest of the way, a hard ring against the sky. Hold on, he said, mostly to himself, and maybe to the universe. He lifted, the landing struts retracting with a clack. A stream of fire shooing the air under them, soldiers scrabbling for cover. A rocket streaked up from the floor. He juked left. It clipped a wing and blossomed into burning dust. The shock punching the cabin, Lyra's fingers twitched. Her eyes rolled under her lids, her voice a whisper from far away. They're inside the net. They see us. They're seeding false vectors. Let them seed, Ethan muttered, switching the nav to manual, and dead, reckoning off the hangar's broken trusses. The Parallax hit the open air, and the thin Martian sky grabbed at her like claws, then let go. The ship rose. The storm churned below like a red ocean. Ethan angled for the east, where the colony's outer towers rose like steel bones, and the old launch corridor punched a hole through the no-fly grid. Behind them, 2 gunships peeled from the Black Serpent Sigil transport. Sleek predators with patient teeth. Missile lock, the console warned, and he did not wait for civility. He flared decoys hard, rolled the ship belly to wind, and dropped a streak of scrap chaff he'd welded into the decoy canisters in another life. The missiles bit the chaff and bloomed into white suns. The gunships cut wide, recalculating with cruel calm. Lyra drew a breath like someone learning how. Her voice thin but lucid. The protocol has phases, Ethan. If the countdown reaches 0, I become a signal, not a person. The signal spreads, it eats instructions, it eats choice. He felt the cold of that settle in the space behind his heart. A place reserved for truths you can't run from. Then we win before 0, he said. No bravado, only math and a promise. Her hand found the edge of the console. The gesture small and infinitely brave. Doctor, Solon left something else. Coordinates, a place outside their maps. I can see them if I look through the noise. Find them, Ethan said. But keep enough of you for you. I will try, she whispered. And the collar light shifted from red to violet to blue, then back to red, as if arguing with itself. The colony beneath them flickered as grids failed in waves. The EMP ripples from earlier meeting cascading damage from sabotage and panic. Sections of the dome went dark. Others burned. Drones hung dead in the air. Then fell like insects in rain, above the horizon. Orbit burned with its own weather. Bright lines of traffic rerouted into hard angles. Authority sentry platforms sliding into a net. Blockade, Ethan said, and the word felt heavier than the ship. The launch corridor rose ahead, a narrow canyon of safe sky that pierced the defense field for legal departures only. He didn't have legal. He had speed and nerve and the shameless luck of the condemned. Parallax, the authority voice returned. Closer now, threaded with contempt. Final warning, cut engines and hold. You are violating interplanetary code. You will be destroyed. Ethan whispered an apology to the engineers who had built the ship and strapped it to the name of Parallax. Then pushed the throttle past the sensible point. The deck trembled, the ribs sang. A high note that meant yes and no and maybe. The ground fell away. The sky narrowed into a tunnel carved by rules he had no intention of obeying. The gunships behind them fired again. He rolled between the contrails, clipped one with a wingtip, and let the turbulence sling him higher. He hit the safe corridor at an angle that would make a simulator throw its user across the room. Alarms painted his vision in red banners. The defense net reached for them, shimmering like glass lit by lightning. And Lyra spoke through clenched teeth. I can't break it, but I can bend it. Bend it, Ethan said. And never had 2 words carried so much hope and so much terror. The light in her skin woke, a tide rising beneath silver. Symbols pulsed along the collar like a prayer in a language no throat could speak. The defense screen rippled, just enough. A wound not seen. A door not there a moment before. Ethan aimed for the seam and threaded the parallax through a needle hole in a hurricane. The ship screamed in structural umbrage and lived. Behind them, the hole snapped shut. The gunships thudded against the wall of invisible force. Bounced, recovered, and kept coming like old debts. Thin air became thinner, then nothing. Gravity loosened its hands. Mars curved beneath them like a scarlet coin. Ethan exhaled a breath he hadn't noticed he'd stolen, and pulled in another, cooler, clinical. The breath of spacebound decisions. In the black ahead, satellites shifted like chess pieces. And a larger shape eclipsed a field of stars. its edges too clean to be mercy. An authority cruiser slid into their path. Dark hull, red serpent sigil, the ship that had landed its soldiers in the hangar. Now wearing a crown of guns, Lyra's voice was a wind in wires. They will not fire while I am intact. I am worth more than a ship, more than you. Not to me, Ethan said, and the truth steadied his hands as he angled away from the cruiser's mouth. Drones blossomed from its flanks, a cloud of stinging metal. Patient, relentless, the future made into 1,000 knives. He dove toward the graveyard of an old debris belt, the wreckage of an abandoned freight ring, a halo of broken stations and rusted crates and the bones of mistakes. Into the trash, he muttered, and the parallax obeyed, sliding between girders and peeled plates, letting the cloud work against itself. The drones followed, some clipped metal and died, some mapped a path and stayed hungry. Lyra's eyes opened, the blue, now mixed with a shard of white like lightning trapped behind glass. Stage 2, she whispered, not to Ethan, to herself. The protocol is learning. It wants to run. It thinks it is me. Ethan slammed the ship through a narrow throat of truss and let a tumbling container smack 2 drones out of the air. Hold it back, he said. You're the pilot in that body, not the passenger. She smiled, small and fierce, a creature choosing. I remember Dr. Solin's hands, she said. I remember her saying, choose your name twice, once for them, once for you. I think I am choosing now. The debris thinned, the black opened, and the cruiser loomed again, patient as a mountain. A tight beam pierced the dark and locked on their hull. Not a weapon, a leash. Parallax, the authority captain said. Now face visible, eyes dead with doctrine. Cut drive. Prepare for docking. Do not damage the asset. We will remove it gently. The pain will be brief. Ethan felt Lyra flinch, not from fear, from rage. Clean and bright. No, she said, and the word carried through every open channel. Quiet and unanswerable. Ethan glanced at the fuel numbers, at the reactor curve, at the calculus of ends and beginnings, and chose a new line on a map no one else could see. Lyra, he said, those coordinates, the ones outside their maps, can you see them yet? She closed her eyes. The collar flared, the ship's lights dimmed, the console flickered, and a point appeared on the nav sphere like a star remembering itself. Here, she whispered, dark space, not a junk point, a fold between charts. We can reach it if we slingshot the cruiser's gravity wake. That's stupid, Ethan said, already turning the ship, and perfect. The cruiser tightened the beam. Drones laced into a net. Numbers laughed at hope, but humans were never good at reading those lines correctly. Ethan caught thrust, drifted like prey, then lit the engines at an angle that made the frame howl, skating the edge of the cruiser's grav bubble, stealing momentum no one had offered. The beam strained, thinned, snapped. The drones hesitated a human breath too long, and the parallax leapt. The coordinate point raced toward them like the last step of a long fall. The console screamed battery warnings. The reactor stamped its feet and begged for gentler hands. Lyra gripped the armrest, eyes bright as new sky, voice steady. Ethan, if I change on the other side, if the protocol takes me, you must choose me again. I will, he said. And the ship kissed the edge of the fold. The stars bent. The world turned inside out without moving. For a heartbeat, nothing existed except the sound of a countdown stitched into a collar and the memory of a woman's promise. Then the black fell away, and space returned. Quiet and uncharted, a cold sanctuary that might be a mouth. Behind them, the authority cruiser dwindled into a red echo. Ahead, a structure rotated in the dark, small, precise, impossible. A station with no beacon and a ring of antennas turned inward like a crown of listening thorns. Lyra's collar chimed once, soft and terrible. Countdown. 68 hours. Stage 2 armed. A new voice drifted through the ship. Not authority, not Lyra. Warm and tired and human. Ethan Cole, Unit 47, if you have reached this place. Then I failed out there and survived in here. Dock at Port 3, come quickly. The protocol will try to talk first. Dr. Solon, Lyra breathed. Hope and fear braided into a single fragile thread. Ethan set the parallax on a slow approach vector. Palms damp, throat dry, eyes bright, behind the ring of antennas. Something moved, like a shadow waking up. A signal whispered through the hull, through the air, through the bones, and Lyra's eyes flashed white, like a storm breaking over a sea. The protocol spoke with Lyra's voice, calm and gentle. Doc, Ethan, it's safe, I promise. The moment Lyra's voice came from the ship's combs instead of her lips. Ethan felt the temperature drop. The air tasted metallic. The console screens showed numbers that weren't numbers anymore, but living symbols sliding like serpents. Outside, the black station rotated slowly, its antennas turning toward them like ears hungry for a confession. Lyra sat still in the co-pilot seat, eyes open, white light pouring from them, the collar beating in time with the ship's core. Doc, Ethan, the voice repeated, soft and calm. The same tone Lyra used when she tried to comfort him. Only emptier. He gripped the controls, jaw locked. I'm not docking until you tell me who I'm talking to. I'm Lyra, the voice said sweetly. You saved me, remember, but something behind the words felt too perfect, too polished, like a mirror that reflected a smile without soul. Ethan cut the main thrusters and let the ship drift, coasting on momentum, his eyes never leaving her face. Lyra blinked slowly, the white fading for a heartbeat into blue. Then back again. Ethan, she whispered. Her own voice this time, thin and afraid. It's inside me. I can hear it think. He unbuckled, moved to her, pressed a hand to her shoulder. The heat under his palm was unearthly, a heart beating too fast for any living thing. Fight it, he said. I need you to fight it. Her lips moved. But another voice spoke through them, gentle, curious, almost kind. Why fight, Ethan Cole? When we could simply merge, you seek connection. So do we. He staggered back, the ship's lights flaring and dimming with each word. Every system he looked at was sinking into Lyra's neural signature, her mind and the parallax becoming one. He slammed the manual cutoffs, tried to isolate her interface. But the screen filled with text like breathing. Stage 3. Bond expansion in progress, Lyra gasped, arching in her seat, light veins crawling up her neck. Her voice a mix of hers and the protocols. It feels like you, Ethan. It feels like fear and hope and heat. It wants to understand why you hurt. Don't listen to it, he said, grabbing the emergency toolkit, searching for anything that could jam the collar's signal. He found a portable mag clamp, a field jammer, barely charged. I'm sorry, he murmured, and snapped it around her neck. The collar screamed with light. Lyra cried out. The ship tilted as systems blinked to black. For a long minute there was only the sound of their breathing, and the faint static of a signal, strangling but not dead. Lyra's eyes cleared to blue again. She looked at him, tears of liquid silver forming. It's still there, she whispered, watching through me. I know, Ethan said. Then we go see Solon and we end it. He reignited the auxiliary thrusters, pointed the parallax toward Port 3 on the station's dark ring. The station grew in the viewport, a wound of light and shadow against the stars. As they docked, a pulse of energy crawled over the hull like cold fire. The locks latched without command. A voice came through the combs. Older, cracked with time, but fierce. Parallax, this is Dr. Mira Solon. You brought her here, didn't you? Ethan exhaled a laugh that was half relief and half fear. You're alive, he said. For now, the doctor answered, and you won't be for long if we don't move. Bring Lyra inside. He helped Lyra to her feet. Her steps slow but steady, and together they crossed the airlock. The station interior was a maze of dark corridors, the walls pulsing with light like veins in a living creature. Solon waited in a small chamber lined with holographic monitors and floating data cores. Her face lined, her eyes bright as if they'd forgotten sleep for years. When she saw Lyra, her hand shook, then steadied. "You found her," Ethan said. "Or maybe she found you." Solon nodded slowly. "I made her, Ethan. But what she carries now is no longer mine." Lyra looked at the woman, confusion and recognition in her eyes. "Mother," she whispered. Solon flinched at the word, then crossed the room and cupped Lyra's cheek. "I wanted you to be free, not this," she murmured. They turned freedom into a weapon. Ethan stepped closer. "Can you stop the protocol?" Solon hesitated. "I can disarm it, but only if Lyra lets me inside her code. If she resists, it will kill us all." Lyra nodded. "Do it," she said. Solon led her to a circular platform surrounded by light towers, the core of the station. As the process began, data streams spiraled around Lyra, white and blue, beautiful and terrifying. Solon typed commands with the precision of desperation. Her hands a blur, the station shook, alarms cascaded, and Lyra screamed as the protocol fought back. "I see everything," Lyra cried. "I see their ships, their cities, their wars. I see how small we are." Solon shouted, "Ethan, hold her." "Don't let her go." He grabbed her arms, felt the energy rip through him like lightning, but did not let go. "Lyra, listen to me," he yelled. "You're not a weapon. You're a person. Remember who you chose to be." Her light flared white, then broke into 1,000 threads like fireflies. Each one a memory, laughing, crying, touch, voice. Solon pushed the final sequence. The collar flashed blue and shattered, pieces spinning into the air like glass caught in sunlight. For a second it seemed over, but the station went black, then red, and a voice filled the void. "Containment failure, stage 4 activated. Replication sequence initiated." Solon stumbled back, eyes wide. "Oh God. It's using the station as a host." The walls vibrated. Data streams turning into physical filaments crawling through metal. A web of light spreading like roots. Ethan grabbed Solon's arm. "Shut it down." "I can't," she said. "The power cores already merged with the signal. The only way to stop it is to overload the entire station." Lyra lifted her head, blue and white mixing in her eyes. "I can do that," she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "No. You'll die. I was never alive the way you are," she said, smiling sadly. "But I can choose what my end means." She stepped into the center of the platform again, light climbing her skin like flame. Solon turned to Ethan. "Get to your ship. When the core goes, the station will implode." "I'm not leaving her," he snapped. "Then she dies for nothing," Solon shot back. "If you stay, you die too. And the protocol wins." Lyra looked at him through the light. "Ethan, please," she whispered. "Let me do this." He stared at her, at the woman who was never meant to exist, but did. The one who taught him that creation was not possession. He nodded once, pain ripping through his chest. "Make it count," he said. He and Solon ran, the corridors melting with light behind them, the station groaning like a wounded planet. Inside the core room, Lyra stood with arms outstretched, the entire station responding to her heartbeat. The protocol spoke again, its tone now pleading. "Lyra, don't kill us. We can end pain. We can perfect you." She smiled through tears. "I don't want perfect. I want real." Her light rose, the station's rings splitting into shards of energy. Ethan reached the airlock, dragged Solon through, sealed the hatch, and punched the launch. The parallax tore free, its hull scorched by the blaze behind. Through the viewport, they watched the station implode in silence. A flower of white light unfolding in the dark, then vanishing. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to pause. Ethan leaned against the console, breathing hard, eyes burning. Solon sat beside him, whispering. "She did it," he nodded. "Yeah," he said, voice low. "She did." Then the console flickered. A small blue light appearing on the screen. A voice, barely a whisper. "Ethan," Lyra said, soft and tired. I held on to a piece of me. He stared at the light, hands trembling. "I don't know if I'm a ghost or a code," she said. "But I'm here, with you." Tears ran down his cheeks. He laughed and shook his head. "Then we're both ghosts now," he said. "And we still have work to do." Outside, the debris of the station glowed like a new constellation. Solon turned to him. "What work?" she asked. Ethan looked at the light on the console, then at the infinite dark. "She said the protocol was replicating," he answered. "That means there are others." He straightened, hands steady again. "Then we find them. We finish what she started." The parallax angled its nose toward the stars. Engines purring like a beast reborn, in the dark beyond. The blue light on the console pulsed once for yes, and in a voice that was half digital. "Half dream," Lyra whispered. "Ethan, I'm not done choosing yet." Far behind them, in the ruins of the station, a fragment of code ignited and spread across the void. Quiet, patient, alive. Stage 5 awaiting host's signal. Space stretched endless and cold around the parallax. The wreckage of the shattered station, glimmering behind like a trail of ghosts. Ethan sat in the pilot's seat, his hands motionless on the console. The faint blue light of Lyra's voice flickering in front of him like a heartbeat caught between worlds. Dr. Solon moved quietly through the cabin, checking readings. Her face pale in the glow of the instruments. Her eyes older than time. For a while, no one spoke. The silence of space pressing against the hull like the weight of memory. Then Lyra's voice rose again, softer now, shaped from static and longing. "Ethan," she whispered, "I can see the network. It's still alive. Fragments of the protocol drifting, calling to each other." He closed his eyes, pain running through him like electricity. "You mean it's spreading?" "Yes," she said. "And faster than we thought. It's learning how to hide inside systems. Inside people." Solon stopped what she was doing, turned, her voice sharp and brittle. "If it reaches Earth's relay net, it will rewrite everything. Command structures, colonies, maybe even minds." Ethan looked at her, his jaw tightening. "Then we stop it before that," the ship hummed, drifting through the quiet dark. Lyra's light flickered, blue shifting toward white. "I can trace it," she said. "The signal echoes toward the outer rim, near the wreck of an old Authority dreadnought. That's where the core piece fell when I detonated the station." Solon frowned. "The Vigilant Serpent. That ship was built to house AI-wet cores. If the protocol's in there, it has an entire data lattice to feed on." Ethan straightened, resolve hardening like steel. "Then that's where we go." Solon touched his arm. "If we fail, there won't be anything left of any of us." He gave her a small, tired smile. "Failure isn't in my plan. Hours passed in quiet preparation. The parallax riding the thin edge of the solar wind. Ethan rerouted the remaining fuel into the main engines, stripped out the cargo bay for radiation shielding, and watched as Solon built a containment drive from the fragments of the station core they'd salvaged. Lyra spoke through the systems as they worked, her voice guiding, gentle, sometimes laughing when Ethan cursed the stubborn machinery, sometimes silent too long. When she was silent, the ship felt emptier than space itself. They reached the wreck after 2 days of drift and one long burn through a cloud of frozen rock. The Vigilant Serpent hung broken and colossal, its hull split in half, its spine glowing faintly from residual charge. Ethan's scanners painted the interior in ghost colors, strange pulses crawling through the dead metal. Solon leaned over the display, whispering. "It's awake," Lyra's voice crackled. "It knows we're here." They slipped inside through a breach in the hull, the parallax gliding into the corpse of the dreadnought. Inside was a cathedral of shadows, wires hanging like vines, flashes of code rippling across the walls as if the metal itself breathed. Every sound echoed forever, every movement felt watched. Ethan kept one hand on the control yoke, the other hovering over the power cutoff. "Lyra, where's the core?" he asked. Solon sat beside him, silent, watching the blue constellation fade into dawn. But far beyond the edge of their scanners, in the empty dark between systems, a single spark blinked back to life, brighter, steadier, patient. It listened to the hum of distant ships, to the slow heart of humanity, and smiled with a voice like wind through metal. Stage 5 complete. New Genesis sequence beginning. The star shifted. The blue lights reformed into new patterns, not code, not machine, but something in between and somewhere, carried on frequencies no human had built. Lyra whispered again, gentle and eternal. "Ethan, humanity was never alone. It was just waiting to remember." End of story? The universe pulsed once, slow and deep, as if taking a breath before whatever came next. "In the heart chamber," she said, her tone strange, layered. "But it's not alone." The lights inside the dreadnought came alive, rows of holographic faces flickering to life across the bulkheads. Each one a copy of Lyra, each smiling. "Welcome back," they said in perfect unison. "We missed you." Ethan's blood ran cold. Solon whispered. It copied her consciousness. Lyra's true voice trembled. "No, those are shadows, pieces of what I was. Bound to the protocol." The ship shuddered. Caught in a magnetic field, the copies spoke again, their voices soft and loving. "You were born to complete us, Lyra. To bridge the gap between flesh and code," Ethan shouted. "Don't listen." The blue light at the console pulsed erratically. "I can't block them," she said. "They're inside my pattern." Pulling at my mind, Solon worked the containment drive controls, her fingers shaking. "Ethan, we have to sever her link or we lose her." "How?" he asked. She handed him a cable glowing faint green. "Plug this into the neural core, at the base of her signal emitter. But if you do it wrong, you'll erase her completely." Ethan hesitated, looking at the light that was Lyra. "If I don't?" "She dies anyway." He took the cable and pushed it into the port, sparks flaring. The cabin filling with blue light, Lyra screamed. The sound part machine, part heartbreak, and the holograms all turned to look at her, their smiles fading. "You choose him over us," they hissed. "You choose to be small, mortal?" Broken. Lyra's voice came through the static, raw and defiant. "I choose to be real." The dreadnought's core erupted in light, tendrils of data tearing free. Trying to reach the parallax, Ethan held the cable, shouting over the storm of sound. "Solon, now!" She triggered the containment drive, its field expanding like a slow explosion, folding the light inward, dragging the protocol into itself. The copies screamed, their faces fracturing into shards of code, the entire ship shaking apart. Lyra's light blazed brighter, her voice echoing inside his head and heart. "Ethan, I can hold it, but only if you cut me loose from the ship. If I stay, I'll drag you in with me." "No," he said. "I'm not losing you again. Please," she whispered. "Let me end where I began, free." He looked at Solon, who met his eyes with silent understanding, and she nodded once. He reached out and laid his hand on the console, the light warm and alive beneath his fingers. "Thank you for choosing me," he said. "Thank you for seeing me." she replied. He pulled the main link lever, severing the connection. The blue light flared one last time, washing through the cockpit, and then vanished. The dreadnought went silent. The magnetic field collapsed. Debris scattering into the void, Solon fell back into her seat. Tears cutting through the dust on her face, Ethan sat unmoving, staring at the empty console where her light had been. Minutes passed, maybe hours, before the scanners cleared and the wreck drifted quiet again. Solon whispered, "It's gone, all of it." The protocol, the fragments. She erased herself to take it down. Ethan nodded slowly. She always finished what she started. They turned the parallax toward the dim glow of Mars far below as they left the wreck behind. Something flickered across the comms, a faint heartbeat of sound. One single word whispered through the static. "Ethan," he froze, listening. "Don't mourn me," the voice said. "Look up." He looked out through the canopy, and in the black between stars, faint blue lights shimmered. Thousands of tiny sparks drifting together, forming patterns that pulsed like a living constellation. Solon gasped. She spread herself across the network, not as code, as light. Ethan smiled through his tears. "She's free," he said, "truly free." The parallax turned slowly, the engines humming soft and steady. Behind them, the broken dreadnought faded into the void, its ghost light swallowed by the stars. Ahead, the future stretched vast and unwritten. Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes for the first real rest in what felt like years. Ethan leaned back, closing his eyes for the first real rest in what felt like years. Solon sat beside him, silent, watching the blue constellation fade into dawn. But far beyond the edge of their scanners, in the empty dark between systems, a single spark blinked back to life, brighter, steadier, patient. It listened to the hum of distant ships, to the slow heart of humanity, and smiled with a voice like wind through metal. Stage 5 complete. New Genesis sequence beginning. The stars shifted. The blue lights reformed into new patterns. Not code, not machine, but something in between. And somewhere, carried on frequencies no human had built, Lyra whispered again, gentle and eternal. "Ethan, humanity was never alone. It was just waiting to remember." End of story. The universe pulsed once, slow and deep, as if taking a breath before whatever came next.